It's a bonus Monday video, whee! Is that a thing you should expect from now on? No. Maybe? Probably not. Definitely don't hold your breath. So, I made a hoodie dress, and I made a video about it, and people were like, yeah, okay, cool, I guess. And then I made 2 more hoodie dresses, and I didn't make videos about them, and everyone was like, where are the videos? How did you make it? Tell us the secrets. Whoops. Y'all, honestly, I just thought that it would be kind of boring and repetitive to do videos on the other 2 renditions because they really aren't very different from the first hoodie dress. But also, I get that the second 2 look way different. And yes, I'll agree with the masses, they're better. But alas, winter is coming to a close, at least here in the desert. And I have no plans to make another hoodie dress, at least not this season. So, for those of you who want to prep for next winter way in advance, or who are perpetually cold even in the middle of summer, or who live on the other side of the equator, I figured I would walk you through the alterations that I did on the original pattern to make these 2 dresses in a hopefully speedy but also thorough and helpful way. Yeah? Cool. First up, the pattern is McCall's 7349. It is a basic 6-panel princess seam dress with raglan sleeves that is intended to be made out of stretch material. Many people have been asking me where to get this pattern, but y'all, I'm not affiliated with them whatsoever. I know I'm advertising them a lot, but it's just because I like it. So I don't know where you can get this pattern. I got mine on a random trip to Joann probably like at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago. I've been hearing that the only one people can find anymore is the petite version. So I don't know what's up with that, but hopefully they'll go back to just making them and selling them in all of your normal fabric and craft stores and online and all of that. I don't know. Sorry about that. Speaking of sizing though, that's another thing people have been asking is what sizing options do they have? Again, I don't really know. The one that I have is sizes 6 through 14. From my general knowledge of commercial patterns like this, I would assume that there's a version that should be sizes 0 through 6, and then there should be one that's like 16 through 22. Even if those are the sizes, I realize that that is not super size inclusive. Yeah, that sucks. I will say though, I have no experience in trying to size up a pattern. Again, I barely ever use patterns, but I would imagine that this would be a fairly easy one to size up. One, because it's stretch material, so that just always makes it easier. But also, because you have those 6 panels, you do have independent measurements for bust, waist, and hips. It's not one piece of stretch material that's trying to go over your entire torso. It does have curves built into it. So for that reason, it seems to me like it would be fairly easy to use your measurements to adjust it, but again, I don't have any experience in doing that. I have always sewn size 14 for myself. I am bust 37, waist 32-ish, hips 42, and size 14 has always fit me perfectly. When I want a tighter version, like the light blue kind of kirtle looking one, or the black evening gown, I will generally take in some, if not all of the seams a little bit, but this is like the size 14, just completely normal fitting. So let us start with the gray one, since it's the one I'm currently wearing and the first one that I made. Honestly, it is like wearing a blanket. It is so cozy. I don't know what either of these fabrics are because I got them at Remainders where they are not labeled, but they are both stretch, they're both knit. The purple one is kind of an interesting ribbed knit. It's pretty thin and light. The gray one is much more stable. I think it's only a 2-way stretch. Yeah, and it's very fuzzy and almost fleecy. I wouldn't really call it a fleece, but it's almost a fleece. So maybe it is a fleece. I did not extend the hem on this dress, so this is where the long version of the pattern hits me naturally. More ankle length than floor length. Honestly, it's a pretty nice length for a dress that I'm planning to wear around the house because a longer hem does brush the floor and pick up fur balls. I expand the width of the hem on my dresses pretty much every single time that I make this pattern. And I really just do that according to the amount of fabric I have and where stuff will fit. So sometimes I'm just adding like a couple inches to the front and the back panel because that's all I can do. Sometimes I'm adding several inches to every single panel. I could not tell you what I actually added to this gray dress in particular. I don't remember, but I guarantee you I added something. And that is a super easy alteration to do. You just start right where it curves out at the waist and you taper out. Sometimes I don't even draw the lines on, I just cut a diagonal line. This one has 2 sets of pockets, which everyone was really excited about, but honestly, y'all, I really never use these outer pockets. It's more for looks. The outer ones are open at the top, and they're basically just patch pockets, which are kind of the easiest version of a pocket to add to this dress. You don't even have to sew on the side seams like a normal patch pocket because you can just sew them into the existing seams. So to make this version of pocket, I just take my cutout side front panels, I lay them on top of a piece of fabric, whatever I'm making the pockets out of, and then I just trace the shape from where I want the pockets to start to where I want them to end. And you can make those straight lines on top. On this one I did diagonal lines on both sides. Make them whatever shape you want. Make sure to give yourself some seam allowance on the bottom, and then even more seam allowance on the top because you're just going to be hemming that. And then I just finish that top edge first. I usually just double fold it, sew it down like you would a hem. Then you can arrange the pocket exactly where it needs to fall on those side panels. And this is usually the very first thing that I do if I'm sewing this kind of pocket on. Flip it the other direction so it's right side to right side, and you just sew along that bottom edge. Flip it back up. You can top stitch down if you want. And then I just baste those sides so that it's not going to be flapping around, but the sides just get sewn into the seam when you add the next panels, and that's a pocket. Super easy. There are also side seam pockets in this one, which is the most common style of pocket that I add to this dress. So side seam pockets are often like, I think they might be called bag pockets. I don't really know though. They're kind of just this loopy shape and they're only connected at the opening and they just kind of hang there. That's not a great style of pocket to put into a knit dress, anything made out of stretch material, because it won't be able to support any weight and it'll just sag and it'll pull down on the sides of the dress. The way that I often fix that on a knit dress is by sewing the pocket into the waistband, but we don't have a waistband. So instead, I sew these pockets into the center panel seam right here. They are sewn in. So they're supported on both sides, even though they're not supported on top. They're obviously going to support weight better if it's a sturdier knit like this gray one, rather than like a really thin knit. But sewing it into those middle seams does help a lot. So once again, just like the patch pockets, I just take my cutout side front panels, lay it on top of fabric, trace down the sides, or just cut down the sides following the lines. I have learned over time that I want my pockets to start 10 inches down from the top of that side seam, and that's something you can just measure on yourself and figure out. Not too hard. And of course you do want 2 pieces for each pocket. You could theoretically do 1 piece for the pocket and literally just sew it on to the back of the side front panel, but you would be able to see those seams. So that's a design choice. Totally up to you. Once again, adding the pockets is usually the first thing I do. On this gray dress in particular, I added those patch pockets first, and then I just treated that side front panel like it was completely normal and the patch pocket was a part of it, and added the side seam pockets. I sew 1/2 of the pocket onto the side front panel on that side seam and then fold it around to the back. Then I attach the other half of the pocket onto the first half of the pocket at the top and the bottom seams. Then I line up my back side panel, making sure it's all in the right place, and sew the second side of the pocket onto the back panel. I usually add some top stitching around that pocket opening to give it some more strength. Then you can fold it all in the direction of the front panel and baste it onto that other edge, ready to be sewn into the actual seam. Okay, sleeves. This one has bishop sleeves with contrast cuffs. The whole reason I used the purple fabric on this dress was so that I could put it on the cuffs, because I did learn on my blue hoodie dress that a ribbed knit is going to be stretchier and therefore you'll be able to pull the sleeves up, which worked like a charm. Cuffs are super easy to make. They're literally just a rectangle of fabric. You want it to be twice the height of your cuff plus seam allowance, and the width is the width of your wrist plus seam allowance. You just sew it into a tube, fold it in half, and sew it onto the end of the sleeve. In the case of bishop sleeves, the sleeve is gathered on the ends first and then sewn in. As far as how I changed the straight sleeve into a bishop sleeve, I'm not really going to go into that here because I did actually show that pretty well on that blue hoodie dress, which also has bishop sleeves. On that one, I did like the proper like slash and spread method of turning it into a bishop sleeve. I will say that on this gray one, I literally just took the pattern piece and drew lines out like this, drew on the bottom according to my measurements. It doesn't have to be precise. What else did I change on this dress? I don't think I reshaped the neckline at all. I'm pretty sure this is just the normal neckline. So the only thing left is the hood. So on the blue hoodie dress, I did a 3-piece hood that basically looked like this. And in an attempt to get that nice sort of extra flop here in the front, I made the neck seam basically where it's going to be attached to the neckline too long. So to fix that, I just added some gathering right on the shoulders to make it fit. This hood is a 2-piece hood, though I did line it, so 4 pieces total. And I really did not want to have to measure and get it precise, but I didn't want gathering either. So I figured on this one, I would taper the ends to a point and I would just overlap them however much they overlap. Y'all, it is honestly surprising how often you can skip that whole like measure twice philosophy and just do whatever you want and then make it work for you. So everybody's been loving this hood design. This was literally just me not wanting to measure anything. So I just made it come down to a point, overlapped the ends as far as it went, and then we're good. Hood construction. You cut out your 2 lining pieces, you sew that center seam, you do the same thing with your outer pieces, and then you sandwich them, sew them together all the way around this edge, fold it back. I did some top stitching down just to make sure that it wouldn't slide around, and then I went to add it on to the neckline. And my plan was to sew on the outer piece and then fold under the lining and top stitch it down basically the same way that you would add a skirt onto a waistband. Only this is like a curved 3D piece and the 2 materials had different levels of stretch and like that was not working out for me. So instead, I took the hood off of the dress, I turned it wrong side out again, and I sewed it entirely closed except for a small hood, like you would if you're making a pillow cover. Then I could turn it right side out through that little hole, and I just had a basically detached, completely finished edges hood. And then I just sewed those finished edges onto the neckline. And did I top stitch it down? Yes, and then I top stitched it down. Y'all, so much easier. I have nice clean edges all the way around. There are several layers of fabric right here in the front, but honestly, especially because it's like a winter dress and it's already a pretty bulky fabric, I don't notice whatsoever. And this is why I say that there is no right way to sew things or to create things. This does not feel like the normal way that an experienced sewist would do it, but it's the way that made sense in my brain and worked for me and was easiest for me to accomplish. So yeah, if doing things the proper way is giving you a headache, take a step back and consider whether there's an improper way that will still look and feel totally fine and will be much easier for you to accomplish. And then go with that, because there are no rules. There's yard work. Can you hear it? Here's hoping not, because I don't want to stop. Okay, moving on to the second dress, and since we are talking hoods, let's start at the top with the hood on this one. Once again, I did not change the neckline at all on this one, and it is a 2-piece hood, just like the gray one. Hi. Hello. In fact, the only difference between this hood and the gray one is that I changed a few of the measurements. My plan was to overlap the ends again, just like I did on the gray one, because once again, I didn't want to have to be precise and make sure that it fit perfectly to the neckline. However, I didn't want them to overlap quite as much as the gray one did, so I just made them shorter. I was also trying to avoid the slight peak that I got at the top of the gray hood, so I curved that back line a little more on this hood. But yeah, I sewed it together exactly the same way, like you do a pillowcase, so it has completely clean edges on the inside. And then I went to attach it to the neckline, and by complete and total chance, the 2 ends of the hood just perfectly met in the front. Like y'all, sometimes things just work out, and I have no explanation for that sewing magic. It just happens. Moving down from there, most of this dress is the basic pattern. I did the long sleeve version, and notably I did not extend the length of the sleeves at all, so you can see they're actually a bit short on me for what like a proper long sleeve should be. I didn't mind on this version and I just left it how it is because I don't really like long sleeves. I feel like they get in the way and I live with my sleeves pulled up anyway. But yeah, if you care about your sleeves falling in just the right place, do make sure that you check the length of your pattern on the length of your arm. I finished the hem on the edge of the sleeve with a double row of stitching. However, this is not like the double needle double stitch kind of thing that people actually use on knit. I still don't have one of those. It's just 2 rows of straight stitch, so it doesn't stretch. Again, I'm fine with that because that means that when I pull the sleeve up, it's actually the right size for where I like my sleeves to rest, and that makes sure that it doesn't like fall down all the time, so it worked for me. But normally on the ends of sleeves that are made out of knit, I use a zigzag stitch, which is what I did on the gray dress, because that zigzag stitch will stretch a little bit. This one, of course, has those exact same side seam pockets. I do them the same way on everything, so we already went over that on the gray dress. And then with the length and the width of these panels, I did want this dress to actually be kind of floor length on me, so I had to extend that hem. I'm pretty sure I added 3 inches onto the hem. I can't entirely remember, but that sounds about right. And then again, I guarantee that I extended the width of some or all of these panels, though I can't really remember which. Definitely the front one, because that is much wider than the actual pattern. So the final change that I made to this one is adding godets. I went with 6 godets on this one, so that is 1 between every existing panel, and the height and width, the measurements of the godets themselves on this dress is just entirely dependent on the amount of fabric that I had. I think I had like a yard or a yard and a half of the tropical fabric, and I folded it in half and cut out 3 triangles as big as I could get them. Well, 6 triangles, because it was folded in half. Sewing godets in can be a little bit tricky the first time that you do it, but honestly, once you get it down, you're just repeating that process and the concept doesn't really leave you once you get it right. To briefly try to explain the way that I do it, you go right side to right side with your godet on one of your panels, sew it on, but don't sew all the way up into the point. If you're doing a 1/2 inch of seam allowance, then you want to stop sewing at the point where your triangle is 1 inch wide. Then you can take your second panel, line it up properly with the hem, the waist, the top, wherever you're lining up your panels. Make sure that it is lined up with the panel, not the godet. Then you can pin the godet to the second panel. Flip it over, make sure that you're only sewing through the other side of the godet and that second panel, that you're not getting any of the other fabric. And then you just have to line up your presser foot to start exactly where your first stitch ended. So again, you'd be 1/2 inch in from the edge if you're doing 1/2 inch seam allowances, and you're making a new point under the actual point of the godet. Sew that side entirely on, and then you close the seam of your actual 2 panels, stopping, or really starting. I prefer to switch it around and start from that point that I just finished. Starting right from there, sew your 2 panels together so that your 3 seams meet like so, but none of them overlap any more than like 1 or 2 stitches. They all just meet. Again, I think it's one of those things that you kind of just have to do, and then once you do it and you get that first one right, it's like, oh, okay, it all makes sense now. Godet disclaimer though, so the side ones on this dress, if you are putting in side seam pockets, are way trickier. I can't even explain it to you because I don't really know how I did it. As you can see on this dress, these side godets are actually just sewn closed for a few inches because that's the only way I could figure out how to get them in with the pockets without my brain exploding. It's not really noticeable unless you're looking closely, so like, I don't care at all. But there are 3 easy ways to avoid this problem. 1, skip the side godets, just put godets in the front and the back. You'll still have a lot of swoosh. 2, make your godet shorter or your pocket shorter, either one so that they don't overlap. Pocket ends, godet starts. 3, just do different forms of pockets. If you're doing those patch pockets on the front, if you're doing fold-in pockets, you're not gonna run into that same problem. So for example, that is what I did on both the blue kirtle dress, which has godets, and on my black evening dress, which has those mesh godets. Those godets are all really tall. They come up like to your waist. So I just did different forms of pockets on those two dresses, and it didn't cause any problems. And that, my dear ones, is the hoodie dresses. Hopefully the verbal explanation plus whatever footage and photos and drawings I can make is helpful to you if you are trying to make something similar. But ultimately, this pattern is just so easy to alter and play around with. You can get absolutely wild with it. And obviously, I have done that a lot. I think I'm up to 14 different versions of this dress, so I need to give this pattern a break. But like, there's still more that I could do with it. I think hoodie dresses are my absolute favorite version I've done of this pattern though. They are comfy, they are cozy, they are warm, and they are still like dramatic and glorious, perfect winter wear for me. So yes, go forth, make the comfiest, coziest, warmest hoodie dresses you can come up with and stay warm like a modern day princess all winter long. Okay, bye! Who is blasting bass? Hey, Whaley. I can't entirely I'm pretty sure I forgot that was there.